We begin each show with a myth-busting segment where we look at some of the foundation myths of the conservative education reform movement. They're ideas that are usually inaccurate and sometimes are outright lies. The myths are repeated over and over by their well-funded supporters and all too often by the media until eventually they start sounding like the truth. Well, the starting point for every suggestion that conservative reformers offer to push their education agenda is that our schools are failing, especially when you compare them to schools in other countries. And according to them, one of the central reasons for the failure is our teachers. They're not getting the job done. If only we can get the kind of high quality teachers in our classrooms. They love to use the term great teachers because it sounds so well, it sounds so great. If only we could get more great teachers in the classroom like they have in those other countries, all our education problems would be solved. The failing schools notion is ridiculously simplistic, and the idea that great teachers alone will solve all our educational problems is more simplistic still, but I have to agree. They have a point when it comes to teachers. We all want the best possible teachers working with our children. Quality teachers do make a difference, no question about it. Most of us can name a teacher or two we had who made an immeasurable difference and influence in our lives. The more top-flight teachers like that, the more great teachers, the better education our children will receive. So we're in agreement. More great teachers is a good thing. And the question is, how do we get them? Now, the conservative solution boils down to this. It's very simple. Deprofessionalize the teaching profession. Make it easy to get a teaching credential. Or don't demand a credential at all. Put prospective teachers through a summer teaching boot camp, or let them take a few online education courses instead of going through one or two years of, instead of going through a 1 or 2 year teacher education program, and bingo, they're ready for the classroom. Or if they know their stuff and if they think they can teach, fine, hire them on, no teaching education or training required. Next, they say fire the bad teachers and reward the good ones. It's that simple. Absolutely no tenure for teachers. If their students aren't getting high test scores, get rid of them. And no pay raises based on years in the classroom or extra education. Added experience, education, training, they're worthless. Just give big raises to the teachers whose students get high test scores, and let the rest keep working for starting salaries until they can prove they deserve a raise, or fire them if they can't cut it. It's a simple, cheap solution. Unfortunately, like most simple, cheap solutions that conservatives tend to come up with, it doesn't work. Deprofessionalize teaching and you'll get weaker teachers, not stronger teachers. And you'll get fewer experienced teachers, since they won't stick around under those conditions. People will teach a few years, then they'll move on to better paying, less stressful jobs. Well, instead of me going after the conservative ideas directly, let's take a look at how teachers are trained and treated in other countries. I'm going to focus on Finland. Well, it usually ranks at or near the top in the world on international test scores. Then I'll look briefly at a few others. If the conservatives are going to use the schools in those countries to denigrate our schools, it makes sense to look to them for examples of ways we can get better results. Now, Finland, it has an amazing record for attracting top students into teaching. Only 15% of students who apply to the country's teacher preparation programs actually get in. 15% of the applicants. That means Finland ends up with the best of the best in the classrooms, capable, motivated teachers. So why do they get so many applicants? Well, the reason is the students know they'll be well trained and well paid. They'll get lots of support for their work in the classroom, and they'll have ample time outside of the classroom to develop into better and better teachers. So let's start with the kind of teacher training they have. Teaching students in Finland take a 3-year graduate level program. That's more rigorous than anything I've ever heard of in the United States. And they don't have to worry about paying off a mountain of student loans. The program is free. Not only that, the students are given a stipend to cover their living expenses. During that 3-year training, they learn how to involve their future students in research and inquiry, not how to drill students for high-stake tests. See, in Finland, students don't take a standardized test until their senior year, so teachers don't have to worry about test prep. While they're in the teaching program, they have lots of coursework, of course, but they also do the same kind of research and inquiry they're expected to promote in their own classes when they teach. And they spend a year getting hands-on experience at a school linked to a university where they practice teaching under the watchful eye of trained professionals, all before they get classrooms of their own. Finland's model is the opposite of the conservative idea that it doesn't really take much training or education to learn how to teach. According to Finland, it takes time and effort to learn that skill. Well, when they finally get their own classrooms, Finnish teachers continue to be closely supervised to help them become as effective as possible in the classroom. And they know they're expected to continue to grow professionally as well as the years go on. They only spend something like half their time in the classroom. The rest of the time is spent developing curriculum, working with other teachers at their schools and at surrounding schools, meeting with parents. Here, we'd say teachers were being pampered if they didn't spend most of their time in front of the students. In Finland, teachers are given plenty of discretionary time. Lots of other traits of Finland's schools indicate the reform ideas we keep hearing from conservatives will take us in the wrong direction. An example, while we're trying to create a national curriculum with our Common Core in Finland, they figure they've invested in creating a skilled teaching force. So they trust teachers and schools to decide what and how to teach without imposing a detailed national curriculum. Teachers' unions are often blamed for our educational problems here, but in Finland, teachers' unions are strong and they work hand in hand with the country's Minister of Education to strengthen the quality of instruction. Now, if students in a school are struggling, the state doesn't give it an F and figure out how to close it. More money is spent on the school. They bring in consultants. They work with the teachers to improve their curriculum and their teaching effectiveness. As a result, the gap between the highest and lowest performing schools is far less than it is here. Other top-ranked countries in Europe and Asia follow similar patterns. In Korea, for instance, another high-ranking country, not only do teachers get tenure, they're granted full tenure until they reach retirement. They spend even less time in front of their students than in Finland, about 35% in the classroom, 65% out of the classroom. And they're required to take a significant amount of professional development coursework over the years. And while Korea has developed a reputation for being a test-hell country because of its emphasis on grueling high-stakes tests, they've come to understand that too much testing is counterproductive, and they're scaling back right now as we speak. Singapore, whose students have shot up to the top of the international rankings, used to favor a rote-style learning, but they've moved away from it to a more innovative, student-centered approach. A slogan for their approach, teach less, learn more. Now, I don't want to make the mistake of saying any of these countries have found the answer, or that we should judge the quality of a country's schools by its ranking on international tests, but I'll tell you, if people want to use other countries' rankings to make our schools look bad, they need to take an honest look at the way those countries train their teachers and educate their students. Conservatives may love to slam our teachers in our schools by praising other countries, but their solutions tend to be the opposite of the practices in the countries they praise.
Well, Dave, that's an excellent assessment of what's going on. And I think that the danger that we're seeing now is with the conservative movement and the ways that we have been denigrating teachers and the teaching profession in the United States, we are starting to lose the very good teachers that we had previously trained and had invested a lot of state tax dollars, national tax dollars in. And there's some rather alarming statistics just from our state, just from Arizona, that have been researched, and I just want to share. And they have to do with the number of teachers that have left the system permanently in the past 5 years. So right now we have a teaching pool of 104,000 teachers in the state of Arizona. What we know from teachers who have left the system is that 67,000 have left teaching in the last 5 years. And that's not just from teachers retiring, that's from teachers leaving the profession entirely and taking up a new profession, or moving out of state, where at least some states pay better than Arizona does. And so we're facing a crisis here.
Well, here's a clue. There was recently a survey conducted by Tucson Values Teachers where they interviewed teachers and did a survey about their attitudes towards teaching. And according to this, more than a quarter said they're not likely to be teaching in this region 5 years from now. They rated their overall satisfaction as low. They talked about the fact that they're spending $1,000 per year on classroom-related expenses, even with their low salaries, which haven't raised with inflation as they should. And it's just no surprise that we've got these kinds of problems. If we want to have a good school system, if we want to have the best teachers, and we all want to have the best teachers, we need to treat them well, and we can use examples from some of these other countries that have made it work.
I agree, and I thought another interesting statistic from that survey was that of the teachers surveyed, and this was about 1,600 teachers that Tucson Values teachers surveyed from September to October of last year, 68% said that they feel they are perceived by the community as childcare, probation officers, and secretaries, rather than their self-perception of professions like nurses, social workers, and other professionals. And I do think this is part of the problem, is that we have devalued their profession to the point that they do feel like they're just, watching children, when in fact what is actually involved in their profession is much more complex, much more complicated, but there seems to be a lack of a public appreciation for that right now.
And I felt that when I was teaching towards my last years of teaching. That was a real problem. We have a problem, let's face it, with the way we treat our teachers from the beginning to the end.
Absolutely.